Carrie Smith.
And I'm Emma Skip, and welcome to
It's a Death Sentence. This is a podcast that takes a lighter look at the heavier things.
So, if you want some of this... So somebody could have been dead for a week and end up with you.
Or maybe longer, and somebody might have said, oh, there's a really bad smell.
A little bit of this.
I haven't got a tissue. I'll get you one. You got one. And plenty of this.
Gosh, it's so original. Fucking hell. Then this is the show for you. Because
life, it's a death sentence. Welcome back. Today we are discussing the joy of life and living after the inevitable sadness that follows when you lose somebody. This episode is called The Sadness Chaser, and we've called it that because, Emma, you put it perfectly when we talked about it before, about how you feel about having lost somebody but having to get on with life. Can you tell me a bit more about it?
Yeah, so basically that phrase popped into my head one day. So I've had plenty of counselling, and particularly like bereavement counselling, things like that, where I discussed with my therapist how even though I've suffered loss, I can still see the joy in things, but something happened. And it is when I see, for example, a really good example is I see my children do something really amazing. So it might be just a basic thing, like they've just drawn a picture and it's really beautiful. So I have that initial moment of joy, which everybody does have and is really normal. But I found more often than not, it was like chased up immediately with something very sad. Like this feeling of loss, this feeling of the fact that my mother would never see this. And that is really where that phrase comes from. It's like, you know, like having a chaser in a pub, but like a really shit chaser where you've experienced this joyful moment, and it comes more often with that extreme feeling as well. So it's not like I wander about in the day and I just suddenly, you know, have a sadness chaser, if you like. It's more associated with having a joyful moment and then it being met almost head on, like, how dare you just get on with life and enjoy it? Actually, just remember this. I'm not sure whether it'll ever go away, and I don't know whether it's as poignant, but when I've discussed it with other friends who've experienced grief, loss for all number of, you know, different situations, that it's something that seems to be quite unanimous.
Right. One of the hardest things to do after you lose someone is moving on, isn't it? Moving on with life as the new normal. Can you think of anything in particular that's been particularly hard? I know you mentioned the children, but for me, definitely it's things like Christmas, holidays, big celebrations, things that I used to do all the time that trigger memories, and that can be the hardest.
You know, it's a really interesting one, that, because I think to begin with, when the loss is, say, in its early stages, so the first, well, I'd say maybe 4 or 5 years, it is the big events, or I found personally it was the big events, so that, like you've just said, Christmas, birthdays, all that. Then something strange happened and I would be inconsolable in the most obscene situations. So I'm in the supermarket, I'm fine, going about my day, especially when my two were really little, so I'd have them both in the trolley next to each other in little twin seats. They weren't twins, but they were very close. And I'd see somebody that looked like my mum, and I would just stand in an aisle and cry because I couldn't do anything about it. It happened in a swimming pool once. I had both of the babies in a swimming pool, and it wasn't somebody that looked like my mum. It was watching other people who were my age with their mothers, who were having help for a start, having help with 2 young kids. But it was more that, right, so there was, I'm missing out on the help, I'm missing out on my mum, and she's missing out on them, and they're missing out on her. And I just thought the whole, what's the word I'm looking for? It's also, I don't know what the word is I'm looking for, I'm struggling.
The whole circumstance, isn't it?
It was just like a circle of shit.
Yeah,
basically,
circle of shit.
The
Sounds
circle
good.
of shit. Maybe that's the next episode. But the circle of shit. I just used to think, what, you know. But then I'd go straight back to the joy of going, well, look at these 2 healthy children. That's really nice. And then this sadness chaser would come along and go, oh, but you're on your own, aren't you? You fucking, you know, like, and so it would just go, cyclical. It just went round. But yeah, it used to get me in moments that were quite I was really not prepared for.
Would you say that you're an emotional person?
What, me?
Yeah.
Gosh, no. Hugely emotional. So I think I'm moved by a lot of things. I'm moved by things in nature, like there's a sunset over there. And I'll go, oh, look at that sunset, so beautiful. I'm moved by people's kindness, sometimes just seeing people be kind. I'm moved by things like all of the time, really. So, yeah, massively emotional. So, if you team that with a load of grief, what you've got is a big sobbing, crying mess most of the time.
I'm very emotional.
Yeah.
I think people would be surprised to
Well, I
know.
was when you first said to me that
I'm a very emotional person. People who know me really well know that I'm very emotional. Like my husband knows I'm such a big wimp, and he's like, "Why do all these people think you're so tough?" Because obviously you're not.
It's because I work for the coroner and I watch horror movies. I would imagine I'm not dissimilar. So I wear my heart on my sleeve, but I'm also a performer. I stand on stage and have done for all of my adult life, and I'm very, I hope, really entertaining to people. And so I don't think people would necessarily think I was a morbid or sad person, but that would be like the average Joe who would meet me doing that as a job. If I was to say, hey, do you fancy a quick chat about grief and sadness with me? Want to come
Have a little cry?
Maybe have a cry. Use my shoulder. I'm really good. I'm quite empathetic. So I probably wouldn't come across it. I'm certainly not morose in any way.
Yeah.
I don't think
But
so.
yeah, I think even at work they'd be surprised. I think because I'm quite, I can sort of compartmentalise how I'm feeling about things. And obviously when I'm at work, I'm very professional and, you have to have a bit of a sense of humour doing the job I do. But I don't think they would think I was sensitive in any, very sensitive about what people would think or say. I don't think they would say that of me. I think they would think, oh, she doesn't care. She's like a bull in a china shop.
It's funny though, that's just down to perception, our human kind of characteristic, how we perceive other people. We're so often wrong. We're so often.
Absolutely.
What about you? So I've described the sadness chaser. How have you experienced that?
I've experienced it like with big events. Obviously for me it's slightly different because I observe it more with my husband and with my sister and with Remy because when I see little things like my sister-in-law, she went for a new job and normally she'd be on the phone to her mum and her mum would be on the phone saying, oh, how was it, fill me in, because they're both teachers. She hasn't got that person to ring, so she's triggered straight away to be upset, which I've always said I'm more moved by how I see people,
yes,
their emotions and how they react, and that makes me feel like I feel upset for her as much as it's a loss for me because I don't get to see her anymore. She wasn't my mum, so I can't imagine how painful if it's painful for me, how painful must it be for her?
Secondary sadness almost.
Yeah, and it's seeing
vicarious, is that the right word? Like living it through somebody else.
I find it's like, for instance, my son, he got an award at school and he's getting one of his little short stories published in a book. This boy wants to be a writer. He's 8 and he wants to be a writer. Amazing. That's what he wants to do. And he was so proud of it. And I told my mum and she was like, oh, my mum welled up then saying, oh, Althea, which was Aaron's mum, she would be so proud because she was a teacher.
Yeah.
And that set me, then I felt like that set me off. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? I was really proud of him, but she wasn't there to share it with. So it's just tinged with like a little,
it's
a little bit of
like
sadness.
tainted.
Yeah,
it's funny because I often know that when we're doing these podcasts, I refer only to the loss of my mum, but I have lost several other people and people who are our age and when I was younger, and so that sadness chaser, just bringing that back in, is different for different people in different situations. I'm talking about it because this is the one that's most prevalent in my life. It's where I've had therapy. It's where I've coined the phrase, if you like. But I was thinking, only the other day we found some footage of my first ever band, and it was on VHS because that's how old.
Wow.
Yeah, I know. It was in colour, which is nice, but footage of the band.
Right.
So I got it put on a USB drive and realised that a lot of these songs I'd written years ago were written with my original band members from when we were at college together. And my first drummer, he died. He tragically had a pulmonary embolism. Is that right? Have I worded that right?
You've worded that perfectly.
And, he just one day just dropped down dead in his bathroom. And so all of that area of my life, which was so pivotal in my career, is tainted by that. So if I watch any footage, all the little magazines and things we were in around Birmingham, any press we ever got, any photographs that are knocking about, videos, everything, I really struggle to watch it.
Yeah, I can imagine.
And it's really sad, because actually it's some of the most joyful memories of my life, but it's tainted by that, and then when you start to unpick all of the losses that you've had, if there's been more than one, you'll look at every area in your life and you'll realise, I'll be driving through an area and I'll look at something and I'll go,
it triggers a memory.
And there it is again. Or I'll be, just sort of daydreaming, and it'll, again, for me, it's always like a joyful moment, often just chased by something else, because I'll be thinking, I've had such a lovely time in music and blah, blah, blah. Oh, but that happened. And maybe I'm actually a real pessimist. Shit.
Revelation. I think, though, for most of us that, we think that death is for someone who's old or sick.
Yes.
Until we actually walk down that valley of the shadow of death or whatever it is. Yeah. I'm claiming Coolio for that.
Yeah, I mean, he's
that reference.
Very good.
But, until we do that, and then we realise if it happens to somebody close to us, like, obviously I talk about my husband's mum a lot, but like you say, I've lost lots of people.
Yeah.
And until we've actually going through that ourselves.
Yeah. And I think our experience of it changes as well. So, I was quite young with the first loss in our family that I referred to in our first interview. And then in my 20s, it was just, excuse my language, but a fucking succession of people, one after the other. And I remember thinking, I am not equipped for this. Even though I was always, fairly emotionally intelligent and available, I wasn't at all equipped for, and the circumstances in which they went was all really different. So ranging from accidental death to just somebody being poorly and they didn't know, and then suicide as well. And all, with that comes so many different things. I often wonder whether, having experienced that as a younger person and then losing somebody so significant in my life, did it train me to be more resilient, or actually did it just make me more sad? And I sometimes think, does it unlock all of these little bits of sadness that you've not dealt with? Or you've not, I don't know even if it's dealt with, I don't want to be like, it's not like you're the victim, because you're not really, it just happens, doesn't it? But it's more going back to our cultural taboos, okay, well, you've had your 6 months, so is your grief over? Brilliant, let's move on.
Yeah.
And I think that is what's really difficult for most people.
A prime example of that is if you work and you get given
would you 2 weeks compassionate leave?
Compassionate leave if you lose a loved one, or other than that, if it's not like a close person to you, you get 3 days or 2 days or just the day for the funeral.
Yeah.
How is that supporting anybody in getting through such a big loss?
Well, let's look at our current state of mental health issues. I mean, firstly, we're a culture of people who aren't talking about the lead up to somebody dying. We're a culture of people who aren't talking about what happens when they die, which is the whole point of us doing this podcast. And we're not talking about it much after, unless the person is willing to go into counselling. And even then, it's not always particularly useful until further down the line. The way we deal with death in our society isn't very good, not very nurturing, not very supportive, and actually you'll be penalised for it. So you've had your 3 days off work. Sorry about that, your auntie's died. Could you come back on Monday? And also, could you not be a weepy mess?
And get on with your job,
yeah,
please.
Just get on with it. And I think there's a lot of that. And I think that then, of course, manifests into people having massive mental health issues and then leaving their work or having long-term sick. We need a much better infrastructure, don't we? I mean, I've gone on a tangent here, but for support for people when there's loss of any sort. I'm not even just talking about people who are losing an immediate family member. I'm talking about people, this could be a friend that you've known for years and years, and it could be significant. It could have had massive impact on your life. And then you have 3 days. It's
not enough, is it?
No.
It's not enough. I mean, I know what we're really talking about here is joy and like the joyful things in life. So I'm trying to be positive here and bring it back to a positive note.
Okay.
But do you think it's normal to feel the complete opposite afterwards? Do you think it's just like a harsh reality check?
I don't know whether it's just me personally, but like I said, when I've explained this sadness chaser to other people, and in the way I experience it, they are all the same. So I think there's an association with guilt. So when you've lost somebody and you experience joy, and it's really radical, obvious, in that moment, joy, I think there is something innate in all of us that goes, hang on a minute, you can't be joyful, and that, that is that chasing moment, but then it does get better, and you do learn to cope with it better, and you do experience joy again. But it might not always be the same, but you do, and I'm a massive advocate for certain therapies. So I had a therapy called EMDR therapy, which, if people are interested, we can put some footnotes on and some links.
I was just going to ask you, were there any techniques you used that helped?
Yeah, so I had CBT, which is, everybody knows, is cognitive behavioural therapy, which, for me, it all depends on your therapist. I got lucky. I think I had a really, really good one, and I'm still with him. EMDR therapy is, I'm going to try and give you a brief description, but it will be very much in layman's terms. But essentially, you're reprogramming your brain. So I don't want to use this as a kind of reference, but it's the best one. If you think of hypnosis, so you're watching a pendulum swing from side to side, there's a theory around why that is so effective. EMDR works in a similar way, so it's a dot that you watch across a screen, or if you're doing it in person, it's a light that does from one side to the other. So your eyes, so I'm just realising I'm being really gesticular and using my hands and no one can see what I'm doing. Your eyes are going to the far peripherals of right and left whilst you're discussing the trauma, and this is essentially to retrain those pathways in your brain to react differently to that situation.
Does it activate your subconscious?
I think so. I think we would probably need an expert to talk about it, and I think it would be a really valuable podcast. I did about 7 to 10 sessions, and I started to behave quite differently. So things like intrusive thoughts, I wasn't having those anymore. Like I'd sort of see my mom in different places, like I said to you, or I'd not like see her like a complete lunatic, but as we all do, we imagine that person to be there. If it happened, I learned to deal with it a lot better. So instead of just seeing it as sad, I then could see it as joyful. So instead of imagining her sort of looking at me and me looking at her and thinking, what the hell's going on, I'd imagine her smiling about the situation that I was in, which was really helpful. It's almost like, sounds like sort of positive reinforcement of memories, and it's almost like, sounds like hypnosis. It's a similar thing. I would say to those who are considering it, you have to be absolutely willing to talk about very traumatic events. So you basically, the jump off point is the very worst memory you've got, and then you work from there to make sure that memory isn't something that's coming back to you all the time. And for that reason, I know we're talking about joy and we've gone down this route again, but for that reason, I do experience joy in a better way now to how I did.
Yeah, I think if you do hold on to those memories and don't talk about them, if they're very traumatic, they become problematic.
Yes, they
do.
In
the future.
And I think, this is, again, another episode, but they find a way out. For me, it was illness in the last 18 months. But I think for most people, really strange things like aches and pains and skin condition and things like this. This is all our body just saying, I am actually in grief and I'm really sad and you're not dealing with it. So here's a load of shit for you.
Yeah. So it's like they say, if you don't take a break, your body will take a break for you, and it won't be convenient.
That's
what they say.
That's a brilliant saying.
I mean, grief can be overwhelming and unbearable for some people, and I truly believe that you can't appreciate the magnitude of it until you've actually experienced it yourself. So that's where you often find people who have gone through it themselves, they would tend to reach out rather than people who haven't actually experienced it. Grief's got many disguises. Some people, they deal with it through laughter, like us, how inappropriate as we are.
In which case, Carrie, I think on this episode, I told you ages ago I had an idea for a photography campaign called This Is Grief.
Yes.
So I've done a few of them. We'll add them to this.
Absolutely, that would be wonderful.
But it is the many faces of grief. So some of the pictures they're of me and my children or me and my family or whatever, and I'm really laughing. and it just says, this is grief, because
Yeah.
it doesn't always, you don't know when you're looking at somebody what they're going through.
Absolutely.
So, yeah.
And some people are angry, some people cry, some
Yeah.
people always keep themselves busy because
or they do all of it.
Yeah.
They have the spectrum of
Yeah.
emotions in a single hour, I think, when you're really in the throes of it.
And for some people, sadly, they're not able to continue, when
Yeah.
they're so grieved. And if it hasn't affected you yet, believe me, it will at one point or another. But remember that you're not alone, and our little community's here, and people can come and talk to us if they need to.
Yeah, and I think it's quite important as we come to the end of this episode, that anything and any episodes that we talk about, if it is something that people are interested in, please write into us. Please talk to us. There is an email provided, and if you're really struggling as well, get in touch with us, and we'll also make sure there's always some links for support. It is, people aren't talking enough. We need to talk about it. You need to keep talking about it. We're dying to talk to you.
We definitely are. And next week we have a lovely lady who's talking about her experience of grief.
Okay.
And she's so lovely and a very kind person. You can tell she's a very kind soul.
Yeah.
So it's definitely interesting to listen to her talking about the joy she's experienced from after the loss of her dad.
Okay.
And that's it. So until next time, let's try and keep living.
Yes. So thank you, dear listeners. If you've enjoyed our show, then please do all the stuff that will help promote us.
Like and share our podcast and follow us on socials, and please subscribe too. If you've got any feedback, it's most welcome, so please contact us.
Likewise, if there's a subject you'd like us to cover, please do get in touch, and thank you for your support.
We are dying to talk to you.